The dining room glowed with that golden kind of light that flatters no one but hides everything. Candles flickered along the polished walnut table, reflecting in the glasses, in the polished silverware, and in the practiced smiles that families wear when they are pretending that everything is fine. It was Mother's Day dinner, and my daughter, Leela, was the conductor of the evening, radiant, composed, and perfectly aware that she had become the kind of woman who could fill a room just by deciding to. Her husband, Henry, hovered near her like a loyal shadow, laughing on cue, topping off everyone's wine, trying to make sure the night went as smoothly as she had planned it. Her in-laws, the Whitcomb's sat across from me, the very picture of refined wealth. They were kind enough, in a distant, condescending sort of way. The sort of people who thanked you for your home-made dish even if they didn't taste it. I sat there, a widow in her mid-60s with hands that remembered factory work, and a heart that remembered love that had cost more than money. I didn't belong to their world, and Leela knew that. Dinner was exquisite, of course. Leela had catered it naturally. There was truffle risotto, roasted duck with orange glaze, and a dessert so delicate I was afraid to touch it. Between the laughter, the stories about business trips and ski holidays, I found myself shrinking smaller, quieter, watching the woman I had raised turn into someone I barely recognized. When dessert plates were cleared, Leela clapped her hands together. Now, presents, she sang. Her smile was rehearsed, her excitement deliberate. I've been waiting for this all week. She turned first to her father-in-law, Charles Whitcomb, a tall man with silver hair and a voice that carried authority even in laughter. "You've done so much for us, Dad," she said sweetly. "You've been like a second father to me." She reached under the table and pulled out a slim, cream-colored envelope tied with a satin ribbon. "Henry and I wanted to do something special for you." Charles opened it slowly, as if savoring the attention. The room leaned in. Inside was a glossy brochure. Caribbean cruise, 2 weeks, first-class suite, balcony view, private concierge service, His eyebrows shot up. "My goodness, Leela," he exclaimed, half laughing, half stunned. "This must have cost about 13,000. She said with a modest shrug, like it was nothing. "You deserve it." Applause, laughter, the kind of exaggerated joy that fills spaces where real affection should be. I smiled politely, but my heart sank. Then Leela turned to me, "And now, Mom," she said brightly, reaching into her purse again. I waited foolishly, maybe for a small box, a card, something thoughtful. Leela always used to make me something handmade as a child. Maybe she had remembered that. Instead, she handed me a small folded piece of paper "For you," she said, leaning over to kiss my cheek. "It's a little something I picked up on the way here, just for fun." I opened it. A $2 lottery ticket, The room went still for me, though everyone else carried on. My eyes scanned the cheap glossy print, the smudged barcode, the words asterisk, "Your chance to win BG," asterisk screaming in childish font. I felt my smile harden on my face like plaster drying. Leela giggled. "You always say you have good luck, right, Mom? Who knows, maybe you'll win something." Everyone laughed. Even Charles chuckled indulgently, sipping his wine. It wasn't the ticket. It wasn't the money. It was the message. The message that I was small asterisk, that I was the joke. I tried to swallow the lump that rose in my throat. "Thank you, dear," I managed to say softly. "That's thoughtful." She smiled, satisfied. She had done her duty. For the rest of the evening, I sat through stories about their new house, Henry's new business venture, and their plans for the baby they hadn't even conceived yet. When they mentioned family, I knew they didn't mean me. When the laughter became too loud, I excused myself to the washroom and stood there in front of the mirror. The woman looking back at me had lines around her mouth that hadn't been there a year ago, Her eyes were bright, but not with joy. I reached into my purse and touched the ticket. $2. That was my worth tonight. The next morning I woke to quiet. My small house felt emptier than usual. I made coffee, buttered toast, and stared out the window at the lilacs blooming in the yard. The same lilacs Leela used to pick and bring me in sticky handfuls when she was little. She used to say, "Mommy, you smell like lilacs." I smiled at the memory and then laughed bitterly. How strange that time could turn sweetness into something that stung. The lottery ticket lay on the counter, bright and cheap, next to my coffee cup. For a long moment I considered throwing it away. Then I thought, why not? It wasn't superstition. It wasn't hope. It was curiosity. That evening, after dinner, I sat down in front of the television. The announcer's voice read out the winning numbers. I read them off my ticket, one by one, almost absent-mindedly. 24, 24, I murmured, 36, 36, 47. My heart skipped. 53, 53, I whispered, sitting up straighter. Then 61. I stared. My hand began to shake. The bonus number, 17. I looked again. My throat tightened. I read the ticket 5 times, 6, 10. Every number matched, every single one. The world tilted. I had just one $120 million. I sat perfectly still. The television chattered on, oblivious. The kettle clicked off in the background. A train horn sounded somewhere far away. And I started to laugh, quietly at first, then louder, until it broke into something closer to a sob. Because the universe, or fate, or whatever cruel, wonderful thing governed life, had just handed me something bigger than justice. It had handed me irony. Later that night, when I lay in bed, I held the ticket against my chest. My mind swirled with disbelief, with joy, with confusion, but above all, with clarity. It wasn't just a windfall. It was a message, the same way that $2 gift had been a message. But this time, I would decide what it meant. And somewhere deep inside, beneath the hurt and the exhaustion, a spark flickered, the start of a plan. Not for vengeance exactly, for something better. Something sweeter. A lesson, one that Leela would never ever forget. The morning after I discovered the numbers matched, the world felt too ordinary. Birds still fought over crumbs on the lawn. My old refrigerator still hummed like it was chewing on ghosts, and the mailman waved as though nothing extraordinary had happened. I watched him from the window, clutching the lottery ticket like it was made of glass. My hands shook. I didn't dare breathe too loudly, afraid the universe might realize it had made a mistake. I had won $120 million. It sounded absurd when I said it aloud. Me, I whispered, Marina Caldwell, retired secretary, 2 cats, a mortgage that's half, paid millionaire. The words didn't fit in my mouth. The news on TV repeated the winning numbers, and when the announcer said the ticket had been purchased at the little gas station on Main Street, I felt the air leave my lungs. That was where I'd stopped for milk 2 nights ago, where the cashier, a boy named Sean, had smiled and said, "Maybe this'll be your lucky day, ma'am." I almost laughed. He had no idea the rest of that day passed in fragments, like a dream I wasn't fully awake in. I hid the ticket in an envelope, then under my mattress, then in the freezer, then back under the mattress again. I called the lottery office twice, but hung up before anyone could answer. I imagined headlines, reporters, relatives I hadn't heard from in decades. And somewhere in that mess of disbelief and fear, there was also Leela, her face the night before, glowing under the candlelight, smug and satisfied, replayed in my mind like a cruel film reel. That smile, so carefully constructed, the way she had leaned close to her father-in-law and whispered as though I wasn't even there. She had no idea that in one careless act of condescension, she'd handed me the keys to an entirely new life. But I wasn't ready to tell her, not yet. 2 days later, I went to the lottery office. I wore my plainest coat and no makeup. The receptionist barely looked up until I slid the ticket toward her. Then she did. Her eyes widened, and just like that, the room changed. The rest was a blur. Papers to sign, a photograph for the press I refused to take, a financial advisor whose handshake was too slick, and a list of security instructions that made me feel like a criminal when the man handed me a check, the first installment after taxes. The weight of it hit me all at once. I could do anything, buy anything, vanish if I wanted. But the strangest thing was, I didn't want any of it. I didn't want mansions or cars. I didn't even want revenge in the way the movies told you to want it, loud and glittering and cruel. What I wanted was to teach to remind, to hold up a mirror to my daughter and make her see what she had become. Leela called that evening. "Hey, Mom," she said, in that half-distracted tone she used when she was folding laundry or scrolling through her phone. "How's your week?" "Oh, fine," I said evenly. "Yours?" "Busy. Henry's working on a pitch for the firm. And, oh, Dad told me he's loving the cruise package. He said it was the nicest thing anyone's ever given him. You should have seen his face." Her laughter grated. Then she added almost offhandedly, "Oh, and did you check your lottery ticket? I saw the winning numbers on TV. Maybe you got lucky, huh?" I paused. My fingers tightened around the phone. For one wild moment, I wanted to tell her everything, to let the words fall like thunder. Yes, Leela, I won. 120 million. And it came from that cheap, careless gift you thought so little of. But I didn't. Instead, I said, "No luck this time, sweetheart. Maybe next week." "Aw, too bad," she said, already moving on. "Anyway, Henry's parents are hosting a little dinner next Friday. You'll come, right? Oh, and could you maybe bring that casserole they liked? You know, the one with the breadcrumbs. Dad says it's so homey, a word that tasted like a backhanded compliment. I agreed because I always did. But when the call ended, I sat there for a long time, phone still in my hand, realizing something vital. She didn't even see me anymore. To her, I was furniture, background, useful when convenient, invisible when not. And suddenly, the plan began to form. Not all at once, but in soft, deliberate outlines, the kind of plan you whisper to yourself so it can grow in the dark. The first thing I did was move the money quietly. I hired an attorney, a sharp, older woman named Mrs. Porter who looked like she'd been born with a pen in her hand and suspicion in her veins. "Don't tell anyone," she said, peering over her glasses. "Not family, not friends, not even the cat. I have 2 cats," I said softly. "Then tell neither." She helped me open a trust, set up accounts, and move the funds in a way that no one would notice, not for a long while. And when she asked what I planned to do with it, I told her the truth. "I want to help people," I said. "But I want to help the right way, quietly." She smiled. "Most people say that, few mean it, but I think you mean it." I nodded. "And I want to teach someone a lesson too." Her eyebrow arched. "Ah, one of those winnings, and not revenge," I said. "Correction," she chuckled. "Call it what you like, dear. Just make sure you enjoy yourself along the way." That week, I began to observe Leela. Not stalk her, not in the sinister sense, but I paid attention. Her social media, her routines, the way she showcased her life like a magazine spread. Everything she did was about image, about being seen asterisk. Her posts were full of things that looked like generosity, but were really vanity. So grateful to be volunteering at the shelter today, 2 hearts. She'd caption, holding a ladle but not a drop of soup on her apron, or supporting small businesses, under a photo of an overpriced cafe latte. It wasn't that she was a bad person. She was just hollowed out by the world she had chosen, the world that applauded appearances more than intentions. And somehow, somewhere along the way, she had learned that money equaled love. That was my failure too. When the next dinner came at the Whitcombs' mansion, I went. Their home smelled like wealth, fresh lilies, polished oak, and quiet disdain. "Marina," Mrs. Whitcomb exclaimed when she saw me, "how lovely to see you again. Oh, that cardigan, such a classic look." I smiled, pretending not to hear the edge in her voice. Leela floated down the staircase in a dress that looked like it cost as much as my first car. "Mom," she said brightly. "You made it, of course," I said. "Wouldn't miss it." Dinner was a parade of pretensions, courses served like clockwork, polite laughter at jokes that weren't funny. Leela shone through it all, the perfect hostess, and I watched her, really watched her, for the first time in years. I saw the way she interrupted, the way she looked past the servers as if they were invisible, the way she smiled at her father-in-law with practiced adoration. When the evening ended and everyone clapped for her dessert presentation, I leaned back in my chair and thought, "You think you've already won, my darling girl. But you have no idea what's coming." That night, as I drove home through the quiet streets, the city lights glinting off my windshield, I felt the silence thrum in my bones. It wasn't loneliness anymore, it was power, gentle, patient, waiting to be shaped. I had all the tools I needed now, money, motive, and time. The world had underestimated me my entire life, my daughter most of all. But she was about to learn something her $13,000 cruise could never teach her, that sometimes the smallest gifts hold the greatest weight. And the people you think are powerless, they're just waiting for the right moment to rise. Money makes a noise when you spend it. A kind of hush followed by whispers. That was the first thing I learned when the bank called me Mrs. Caldwell, with new softness, when the teller smiled too wide, when strangers began using words like asterisk, ma'am asterisk, and asterisk investment portfolio asterisk. I didn't tell a soul, not Leela, not Henry, not even the neighbor who brought me soup every Thursday. Instead, I began to weave my silence into something sharp. Because silence, I discovered, is more powerful than any announcement. And I was no longer the woman who sat at her daughter's table, clutching a $2 ticket, smiling through humiliation. No, this time I would write the story. The plan came together in pieces, like a quilt stitched by patience. First, I called the travel company that had handled the Whitcombs' cruise booking. I remembered the name because Leela had bragged about it at dinner asterisk, Ocean Vista Luxury Voyages. They handle all the A-listers. Asterisk, I spoke to a woman named asterisk Chantal asterisk, who sounded like she'd never been unimpressed a day in her life. "I'd like to book a Caribbean cruise," I said. "Wonderful, for how many passengers?" 20, I said, smiling. "All first-class suites." There was a pause. 20, yes, for residents from the Rosewood assisted living home, and one special guest. The click of her keyboard slowed. "I see, and who might that be?" "Mr. Charles Whitcomb," I said calmly. "Tell him it's a surprise, gifted anonymously." I could almost hear her confusion humming through the line. When the tickets arrived, thick and glossy, I traced the raised lettering with my thumb. They looked just like the one Leela had gifted, only multiplied, expanded, transformed. Not revenge, asterisk correction. Asterisk, that was the word I kept repeating to myself. I didn't want Leela to bleed. I wanted her to asterisk wake up. Asterisk meanwhile, I worked with Mrs. Porter, my steely lawyer, to set up something more permanent. A foundation. It started as an idea scribbled on a napkin. Asterisk, the Leela Caldwell Fund for Community Learning. Asterisk, using her name without permission might ruffle feathers. Mrs. Porter warned, "I'm counting on that," I said. I wanted the name to echo in rooms she hadn't entered yet, to live on letterheads, banners, and websites before she even knew what it was. I wanted her to walk into a conversation one day and hear asterisk, her own name asterisk tied to something selfless. That was the point, to force her to see the difference between charity and generosity. Mrs. Porter drew up the papers, and within 2 months the foundation was real. It had funding aboard a mission, asterisk, to support education programs for underprivileged children and senior learning initiatives in low-income communities. Asterisk, every article about it made sure to mention the inspiration behind the name, asterisk, in honor of her daughter, Leila Caldwell Whitcomb, whose spirit of giving inspired her mother's philanthropy. Asterisk, Leila's friends saw it first. The congratulations started rolling in before she had any idea what was happening, and when she finally called me, her voice was sharp enough to cut glass. "Mom, what the hell is this?" "What's what, sweetheart?" I asked, stirring my tea. "Don't play dumb. This asterisk foundation asterisk. The papers are saying I started some charity." "Well, technically, you inspired it," I said mildly. "Isn't that nice? Mom, this is insane. You can't just use my name like that." "Of course I can," I said softly. "You gave it to me." There was silence, then a brittle laugh. "You've lost it." "No," I said, setting the spoon down gently. "I've just found it. The first event for the foundation was a small community dinner at the local recreation center. I paid for everything: flowers, food, even new curtains for the drafty windows. The board insisted on hosting it publicly, inviting local journalists. I didn't object. When Leila arrived, she looked every inch the reluctant celebrity. She wore a silk blouse and too much perfume, her posture perfect, her smile forced. The cameras adored her. I almost pitied her. Almost. She pulled me aside, hissing through her smile. "You've really lost your mind, Mom. These people actually think I'm doing charity work." "Well," I said, "you could. Excuse me, there's an open seat on the board. You could join us, help guide the fund, be the face of it." "Mom, I have a life, a husband, responsibilities." "Yes," I said, and this would be another one. The press approached then, cutting her off. "Mrs. Whitcomb, over here. Can we get a quote about the fund?" Leila froze. I watched the storm pass over her expression, the calculation, the pride, the public mask sliding into place. She smiled. "I'm just honored my mother believes in giving back." She said smoothly, "Community matters, always has." Flashbulbs burst like fireworks. And that was the moment the first crack appeared in her perfect facade. Over the next weeks, the foundation grew legs of its own. Donations poured in, local schools reached out. The press adored the story of the mother-daughter philanthropy duo. And for every compliment Leila received, a small knot of guilt began to tighten inside her. I could see it when she visited, how she flinched when I mentioned the programs, how she avoided questions about the budget or the children. Then one day the board voted to expand. They proposed a new community center, asterisk asterisk the Leila Caldwell Learning Hub asterisk asterisk, and naturally they wanted Leila to lead the groundbreaking. She couldn't refuse, not publicly. When the big day came, the local paper covered it with pride. Children from the after-school program performed a song. Seniors from Rosewood brought handmade crafts, and there, among them all, was Charles Whitcomb, fresh from the cruise, sunburned and beaming, arm in arm with residents he had once ignored. "He hugged me that morning, Marina," he said, voice thick with something like emotion. "That trip, it changed me." "I'm glad," I said. "You looked like you needed the sea." He smiled, and I saw in his eyes a humility I hadn't seen before. A quiet gratitude that came from being seen by people who expected nothing. Leila watched from across the courtyard, confusion creasing her brow. She had no idea her father-in-law's transformation was part of my design. That evening, after the ceremony, we gathered at my home for a private dinner. Just the family. Henry poured wine. Charles recounted stories from the cruise, how he'd helped an elderly man with his luggage, how he'd learned to dance again. Mrs. Whitcomb teared up, and then, slowly, Leila's composure cracked. "I don't understand," she said suddenly. "You're all acting like Mom's the hero here. She just donated money." Charles smiled gently. "Sometimes, Leila, giving isn't about the money. It's about showing up, about seeing people." Leela opened her mouth, closed it, then laughed a single sharp note. This is ridiculous. Everyone's pretending this whole thing is noble when it's clearly just some publicity stunt. I set my fork down. Publicity for whom, darling? Her face went red. I didn't want to humiliate you. I said softly, but maybe you needed to remember what giving actually looks like. Henry shifted in his chair. Leila, honey, maybe she's right. Maybe, don't you start, she snapped, standing up. You all think you're so pure. This asterisk act asterisk. It's just another way of showing off. I stood too, but my voice stayed calm. You know, I used to think the same thing, until someone gave me a $2 lottery ticket and taught me what asterisk value asterisk really means. Her eyes met mine then, wide, dawning, horrified. What? She whispered. I smiled. Yes, that ticket. The silence was a living thing. Even the air seemed to pause. I won, I said simply, $120 million, because of your gift. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Congratulations, I added gently. You made me the luckiest woman alive. She sat down slowly, her face pale as paper. And for the first time since she was a little girl, she looked at me. Not through me. The next morning she came to my house. No makeup, no perfect hair, just Leela. I don't know what to say, she murmured, sitting at my kitchen table. Start with the truth. I said. She looked at her hands. I was embarrassed of you, of everything. You were always so simple, and I thought money made things better. It doesn't, I said. It just makes the truth louder. She nodded, tears brimming. What happens now? Now. I said, sliding a folder toward her. You run your foundation, for real this time. 1 year, unpaid. You'll visit every program, meet every person, write every check by hand. She blinked. And if I refuse, then the board will dissolve your name from it. I said evenly, but if you stay, you might finally learn what it means to asterisk give. Asterisk. For a long moment she said nothing. Then she reached for the folder. I'll do it, she whispered. As she left, the morning sun spilled across the counter, touching the framed photograph of her as a child, chubby, cheeked, holding a bunch of lilacs. That little girl had once believed love could fit in a handful of flowers. Somewhere along the way, she had traded petals for price tags. But now maybe she would learn to bloom again. And I, Marina Caldwell, once the invisible mother, had finally learned that the sweetest revenge isn't destruction. The seasons turned almost shyly after that night. Summer crept in through the lilacs, the same ones that had grown wild along my fence since Leela was small. They smelled of home, of memories that still ached when I breathed them in. Leela came to the house often now, no longer in silk dresses, but in simple shirts, her hair tied back, notebooks tucked under her arm. She had started her first month as the acting director of Asterisk, the Leela Caldwell Fund for Community Learning Asterisk. I never told her that I had quietly stepped away from most of the decision-making. The foundation was hers to lead now. Her hands had to learn the weight of giving. The first few weeks were a storm of awkwardness. She fumbled with phone calls, botched meetings, and misunderstood the volunteers. There were nights when she came by, eyes red, and sat at my kitchen table just to say, asterisk, they don't like me, Mom. Asterisk, they don't have to. I'd say gently, they have to trust you. That comes later. She would sigh and stare at her tea until it went cold. The daughter who once gifted me a lottery ticket because it was funny was now learning the kind of work that stains your hands instead of polishing your image. It was slow, painful magic to watch. In August, she took on the first major event herself, a school lie drive for children whose parents couldn't afford backpacks or notebooks. She didn't call me for help. I stayed in the background, pretending not to follow the updates that trickled through social media and the local paper. The day of the event, I drove to the site quietly, standing across the street. She was there on the asphalt, hair pulled back, handing out boxes with a smile that wasn't painted on. A little boy hugged her knees, and I saw her freeze the same way she used to when she was 5, and our neighbor's toddler had grabbed her in play. She bent down and hugged him back. It was such a small thing, but it nearly undid me. The volunteers didn't pose for photos. There were no cameras this time. The world wasn't watching, but I was. And for once, that was enough. When the school drive ended, she came over that night smelling of sunscreen and sweat. They all called me Miss Leela. She said, laughing. Like I was a teacher. You were, I said softly, for them and for yourself. She smiled, but her eyes were glistening. You really aren't going to rub it in, are you? Rub what in? That you were right. I reached across the table and took her hand. You needed to find it out loud, me saying it wouldn't have done a thing. By October, word had spread that the Foundation's work was real, not just branding. Donations increased, but Leela refused to take credit. She started deflecting interviews, sending staff to speak instead. Once she told me, I don't like hearing my name in the Foundation anymore. It feels wrong. Good, I said. That means you're beginning to understand the right kind of pride. Then came December, and the gala, the same event that had humiliated her before, reborn into something quieter, more honest. This time there was no glittering ballroom, no champagne towers, just a hall filled with folding chairs, home-made cookies, and laughter that came from somewhere true. The local children performed a small play they'd written themselves, a story about kindness and luck. The main character, a little girl with braids, gave her mother a magic paper ticket that ended up changing both their lives. I felt my throat close as the audience laughed in recognition. Leela sat 2 rows ahead of me, frozen at first. Then she turned, found my eyes, and smiled through tears. When the play ended, she went up to the microphone. Her voice trembled. I used to think giving was about having enough, she said. But I've learned that it's about being enough. The room was silent. Then came applause, soft at first, then steady like rain. That was her moment, not mine, hers. A few weeks later, after the holidays, we took a walk along the harbor. The air was sharp, the kind that tastes like salt and forgiveness. She stopped by the railing, hands in her coat pockets. You really won $120 million, she asked, still half in disbelief. Yes, I said. Still feels unreal. And you didn't buy anything ridiculous, no yachts or gold toilets, I laughed. No, just peace and time. They were more expensive. She smiled, but then her face softened. I'm sorry for how I treated you that night, at dinner, for years before that too. I looked out at the water, watching the tide roll against the rocks. You were trying to be who the world told you to be. You just forgot who you were before it started talking. Her voice dropped. And you had to teach me by breaking me. No, I said, you were already cracking. I just gave you the mirror. We stood there a long while, the sea murmuring below us. Then I pulled something small from my pocket, a piece of paper folded carefully, edges worn, the asterisk lottery ticket. Asterisk, she gasped. You still have it. Of course, this little thing changed everything. I held it out to her. It's yours, technically. She hesitated. I don't want the money. Good, I said. It isn't about that. Keep it to remind yourself that worth doesn't come with a price tag. She took it, eyes wet. I will. We didn't speak after that. We didn't need to. The gulls cried overhead, the sky blushed with evening, and I felt something inside me unclench, the final knot of old pain loosening. Weeks later, the Foundation's newsletter arrived in the mail. The header read asterisk asterisk, thank you for believing in change, asterisk asterisk, and at the bottom, signed in Leela's handwriting, asterisk, in honor of my mother, Marina Caldwell, whose lessons came wrapped in grace. Asterisk, I laughed. When I saw it, then I cried just a little. It was strange, the taste of peace, not sweet exactly, but soft, like tea left to cool. In the end, revenge hadn't been fire or fury. It had been asterisk patience. Asterisk, it had been the long, slow shaping of truth into something that could heal instead of wound. Leela learned what love looked like when it worked hard and spoke softly, and I learned that forgiveness, when done right, isn't surrender, it's evolution. Sometimes life hands you a $2 ticket and asks, asterisk, what will you do with it? Asterisk, some people laugh. Some people throw it away, and some people, if they're lucky, win far more than money. That's the lesson my daughter learned, and the aftertaste I still carry, that even the smallest paper gift can set a heart free.